Beijing mean tweets and the veiled threat of a trade war put aside, China is preparing to host U.S. President Donald Trump on a visit this year. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi confirmed China is preparing for Mr. Trump's first trip to Beijing after speaking with U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson in Manila. Just last week Mr. Tillerson said the U-China relationship was at a pivot point and he hoped they could avoid conflict. Chinese President Xi Jinping, right, will host U.S. President Donald Trump, left, in Beijing later this year. Here the two meet at the G20 in Germany last month. Photo app Mr. Wang said in his meeting with Mr. Tillerson that China and the U.S. had avoided conflict for 40 years but acknowledged some sensitive problems. With Beijing also set to stage the 19th Party Congress, a key meeting of the Communist Party leadership, in October and November, analysts expect Mr. Trump's visit, with the unpredictability it could entail, to come later in November. He is due to visit the Philippines and Vietnam in November. Chinese President Xi Jinping needs stability and to project the image of a powerful leader at the Congress. Kerry Brown, a professor of Chinese studies at the Lao China Institute at King's College in London, said the pluses of getting Trump to Beijing outweigh the negatives. No matter what the chance of a Trump mood swing, or the domestic situation in China, they would think sooner rather than later is better, simply so that they can continue to forge some kind of pragmatic relationship with him, he said. Trump is doing a superb job of bolstering the Chinese position in the world and making it look increasingly important as a nation through his appalling lack of discipline and the damage he is doing to the U.S. image and its alliances. North Korean Foreign Minister Ri Yong-ho and his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi before their bilateral meeting at the ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting in Manila. Photo app He said the Chinese also know politicians as conceited and shallow as Trump will be easily seduced by the theater and protocol of Beijing. China's decision to back the United States in the United Nations Security Council, delivering a new round of sanctions that will cut $1 billion $2.5 billion in exports from North Korea, has avoided the untimely prospect of a damaging trade battle with the U.S. U.S. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson and Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi in Manila for the ASEAN Foreign Ministers meeting. Photo at Bonnie Glaser, director of the China Power Project at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington, said the sanctions resolution was a win for China, because it had avoided agreeing to oil sanctions. It appears Beijing bought time and averted more sanctions on Chinese banks facilitating North Korean access to the international financial system, she said. Ms. Glaser said China might consider oil sanctions if North Korea conducts another nuclear test. Although China has called for a return to six-party talks with North Korea, and Mr. Wang met with his North Korean counterpart Ri Yong-ho at the ASEAN gathering in Manila, she doubts there will be any progress on dialogue before the Trump visit. China probably wants to avert more U.S. secondary sanctions. It wants to be portrayed as part of the solution rather than part of the problem, she said. The sanctions will remove a third of North Korea's foreign currency income, and are the seventh round of restrictions since North Korea's first nuclear test in 2006. Lu Chao, a Korean expert at Liaoning Academy of Social Sciences, was quoted by Chinese media as saying the sanctions were the most serious in history. Many Chinese companies in Liaoning and Jilin provinces would also be impacted by the seafood ban in particular, he said. Leonid Petrov, a North Korea expert at the Australian National University, said China had given the appearance it had delivered on its promise to Trump. Mr. Petrov said the extension of the sanctions to cover the sale of iron ore, lead and seafood would impact on Chinese provinces such as Liaoning, bordering North Korea, which may have been conducting trade without Beijing's oversight. It sends a signal that they should stop doing it, he said. Chinese exports of iron ore to North Korea increased 60% in the first half of 2017, jumping shortly after UN sanctions on coal took effect in February. But a clampdown by Beijing appears to have followed this surge, as Chinese customs data shows iron ore to North Korea falling 10% in June. Mr. Petrov said the ban on fishing exports will bite in North Korea, which had relied on stealing fish from the Chinese, Russian and Japanese exclusive economic zones before selling the poached products back to the same countries. South Korean media reported that North Korean Foreign Minister Ri Yong-ho bumped into South Korean Foreign Minister Kang Kyung-hor at the Manila Forum, only to reject the South's offer of reopening talks as lacking sincerity. Mr. Ri was avoided by Mr. Tillerson, who skipped a group dinner attended by his North Korean counterpart.